He's from like 1921. He died, like he went into a coma in 1921 and woke up in the year 30 something something or something.
Holy moly.
It's a weird book. I gotta send it to you because I can't talk about it online. It's way too. He's from like 1921. I feel like, oh, he died, like he went into a. Now people are gonna know. They're gonna be like, what is that? What is that?
Oh, there. Okay. I can't remember how to use technology. Anyway, I haven't read that Tantra book that you told me.
Oh, yeah.
I still have it. It's in my bedroom with all my other books. But I really want to read it and then we can talk about it. I also got this book. Have you heard of it? The Gospel of Mary Magdalene.
I have.
You read it? Or
I don't think I read it. I think I thought about getting it. Is it the whole bit about Mary Magdalene being a Gnostic or something? Or is that something else?
I guess it's like Mary Magdalene had Gospels in the Bible that they like took out.
Huh.
But I haven't started reading it yet. So I'll do that and then I'll let you know if it's good.
Tight. Live on YouTube. What's up, y'all? Hey, folks. I'm David. This is Sarah. Sarah, I'm sorry. You can introduce yourself.
It's okay. I love being introduced.
This is my friend Sarah, and we are live with your spiritual friends. And tonight I don't know, we get it on here. We talk about something interesting. I haven't seen Sarah in a long time. She's left the West Coast and she's in Asheville, North Carolina. What's up with that?
I love it.
Love it. Oh my God.
It's so nice. There's just trees everywhere.
Oh, okay.
And rivers. Like someone will be like, oh, let's go to a brewery. And we just like go to the brewery and there's just like a river right there. And you're just like, what could be better? Although it's been really cold. So it would be better if it was warmer. A lot of places I go, I'm like, this would be so great in the spring.
Oh man. Yeah, nice. That's so weird. It's weird that you're there in my brain.
I know. We're so far away from each other.
Oh, like, okay. Oh, sorry. I was late on that. I didn't say yes fast enough and I'm feeling
It's okay. It's the internet too.
Yeah, it's trash internet in 2022. So I guess usually we get on and we talk about spiritual stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
Have you do you feel like you've had to like learn any lessons on your move? Like what has stuck out to you moving across the country like that? Because I know whenever I go somewhere, I implode.
Yeah, well, this is actually interesting, kind of on the topic that I was thinking of for today, but my mind just went in like a million directions. So I'm trying to think of, I feel like there was like one thing, it'll come to me if it's supposed to come to me. It was, I think the thing that's the craziest thing about this move is that it's a move I've wanted to make for like 10 years, like at least to leave LA. I didn't always know that I wanted to come to Asheville, but I've actually went to Asheville for the first time about 10 years ago. So I literally like could have, like, I knew it existed and I knew that I liked it and I like technically could have moved here. But I spent so long in LA just kind of like at a baseline uncomfortable, I would say. Like I obviously like met tons of cool people and like did cool stuff, but I never liked LA and I've always wanted to leave. So to have that tension of wanting to leave and feeling like I couldn't leave, or I like didn't know how to get out, or I didn't know where I wanted to go, and then all of a sudden to just make the move, and it was so graceful. That like I think back on 2021 and I just think like what even happened? Like it was almost uneventful, like how graceful and easy the move was.
Yeah.
And of course there were like certain things but that were difficult, or I went through all of my stuff in my apartment, got rid of everything that wouldn't fit in my car, only took my car over. So it's like in the moment there are things, but overall it just was like so clear of like, this is the next step, like oh, okay, because I went on a road trip first to kind of like see, okay, do I want to move somewhere? Like, is somewhere calling to me right now? And I went here, I went to Nashville, Tennessee, I went to New York, and I went to Maine. And it was just really clear that I wanted to go to Asheville. And like, kind of once that became clear, which was, there were like these weird kind of like graceful steps leading there. Like my friends here took me apartment hunting. My other friends was like, oh, you can stay with me in Nashville for like however long you want before you move. So it just kind of like was, these steps were sort of like laid out in front of me, and I just took them. And now I'm here. Like, I think that is like the most wild thing.
Man, that's the most zen shit. Like it sounds like you just settled in. Like, yo, we here, we doing it. Like I move. I'm feeling the like I'm trying to like imagine doing that, and I immediately started panicking. So that's
yeah.
really,
No, I know. And I mean, that's like sort of, so, you know, when we first started talking, what do we want to talk about? I've been sort of intrigued by this balance between, or like thin line almost between agency and like what we take action toward and like what we have control over and what we don't have control over. Because, you know, anyone could say, oh, you could have just moved earlier, you know, you didn't have to stay in LA for 10 years while you like were trying to leave. But the way that I was experiencing it was like there was just a wall there. Like I could not get through. There was like not a door. And then all of a sudden there just was a door and it just opened and I like walked through. So like the walking through the door was the agency in a way, but like, did I have control over the door opening? Like it doesn't feel like I did, you know?
huh, huh. Yeah, I don't know. That's a really interesting way to think about it. I don't, because like I don't like, that's not something that I am ever like overthinking. I don't think.
Like you mean like what you have control over versus what you don't have control over?
Well, yeah, mainly I'm trying to think. Well, for me, I'm really sorry. I was clearly setting up something. I had to send an email.
You're just doing over here doing work.
So doing like a whole thing. Okay. I'm back though. I don't know. Because I in my head, anytime I'm presented with like a either or, my mind immediately goes to like both and neither. Like immediately. Right? Because like we know that like it's always going to be a paradox. That's just kind of the way things go. And
Yeah.
so for me, I'm like, it's I don't know. I think in my mind, what I tend to do or what I have done in the past is been treated that like a form of divination or confirmation. And I know that's not really what you're saying technically, but in my head, that has created an aversion to any of that for me. But maybe on a more literal sense, right? There's no wrong answer ever, right? Like it's never almost made a Marvel reference. In my head, everything is kind of laid out. Um, every decision you make can deviate you from your path, right? And so that's a new path, but in my head, it like doesn't matter. There's still no wrong way, right?
Right. You're saying you can just do anything, make any choice. It's not
Right.
like you can separate yourself from who you are or what
Yeah.
you're quote unquote supposed to be doing or whatever. It's just another way to get there. Is that kind of what you're saying? Or
Yeah.
like not even
Yeah.
get there, because that's what the
There's
idea that we're like going somewhere, but
Yeah, I think that's also it. The idea that we could ever stray from our path is probably my kind of aversion to even worrying about it, mainly because that creates such kind of an internal separation for us, right? Like we
totally.
like oh shit, I'm not in my alignment right now. Like what the fuck
Yeah.
does that mean?
I mean, that's a good point, because I think that's something that I really struggled with in LA, was that I always felt like I wasn't supposed to be there.
Hmm.
And in retrospect, I'm like, cool, that was a cool time, you know. But while I was there, it was like painful. And I think part of my resistance to it was that I sort of like never wanted to go in the first place. And it always felt like a decision that I had made out of fear because I
You
had
never
come
wanted to go to
to
LA in the
LA.
first place?
Yeah. Like my decision to go there was essentially like I was in New York. I wanted to stay in New York, but I just didn't know what to do there. And going to LA kind of felt like the safe thing. So that's sort of why I went. Like my family's in Southern California, and it was just sort of like the easy next thing, but it wasn't necessarily what I wanted. So I think I just kind of carried that energy with me like throughout, and I couldn't like get myself out of it in a way.
Mm.
So I don't know if it's just like a mind, like literally just a mindset thing where it's just like, well, now I just have the mindset that I wanted to come here. And I did. But also like, yeah, go ahead.
No, oh, go ahead. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off. I'm sorry.
Well, in retrospect, obviously, like I'm like, I made so many great friends in LA. Like I had so many cool experiences. Like it's so awesome that I got to do comedy and like experience comedy. And, I grew a lot. Spiritually, I had a lot of really challenging experiences, which, sometimes we just like need those in order to grow. And that was my sort of experience of like going through like a deep, dark night of the soul. And I feel like I came out like, I'm like, I prefer if I didn't have to go through that. But like now coming out the other side, not that the whole of LA was like that, but more the beginning years that I was there. I feel like I'm a lot stronger as a person. Like I know myself a lot more. I think when I first got to LA, I was really like, who am I? Who am I? I was just asking myself that constantly. And now I like never ask myself that. Like it feels like almost a silly question at this point. Which made me think of the thing that I was gonna say earlier and it left again. So we'll see if it comes back.
Mother! Bro, why are you playing with me? Why are you playing with me? Oh my gosh.
But I don't know. I think it's like when we're in those hard times or we're in a situation that we don't want to be in, that's when it feels like, oh, I need to do something and control something to get out of this situation. But really, it's like that situation will just end.
Yeah.
Automatically, I think. Even if it takes 10 years, apparently.
It feels very like kind of like every sort of step sort of on all our journeys have these like massive sort of leaps or these seemingly massive like I feel like the journey in consciousness is not one that like because it's not linear you can be like like down bad on some weird shit for a very long time and then like it's just like oh wait and then you kind of are in a different space but I love the fact that it feels very sort of, I don't know, just when you talked about how almost effortless it was, right? Like that obviously has something to do with your journey in general and just kind of where you are now. I don't think it's a mistake that you like were like, I'm gonna go to Asheville and it's gonna be seamless. I don't think that's a mistake that happened right now, right?
No, it feels very like meant to be in a way, but like I do struggle with the idea of like fate or destiny or like because I feel like saying it was like meant to be seems like oh this was like laid out as a path in front of me that I just had to go, but in a way I do feel like some things sort of are meant to be. Like I feel like I have some friends who it feels like the fact that we even met is like a miracle. Like some of my friends from college, like the way that we like got connected and like happened, that kind of stuff who I'm like still really close with. It just feels like, oh, were we like sent to each other from like a higher power to be with each other? You know what I mean? Like where it feels like this is like a gift that was given to me that I didn't have.
I fucking know people like that when I'm just like, when we're, when you're like with them, you're just like, oh, this is different. Like it's just, That's really interesting to me. I don't know. I guess I am. It's probably both. You probably like colluded something probably on some other life.
Yeah, right. And maybe it's like maybe here and now it's like just a matter of like showing up to
whatever's there. Yeah.
Present. Like for me, this last summer, it was like, it was present to be able to move. And I like showed up to that, you know. I guess it's possible that I could have been like, I'm not ready, but like that, I feel like I would have never made that choice, but maybe I would have. Maybe that's why I didn't move before. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I try not to, not try not to, but I like what you said about just being kind of present with what is kind of in front of you.
Yeah.
Whatever the fuck that is. Because I think for me, whenever I attach like a meaning to the situation or the person, like I get really objectify-y. Like I objectify that person in a way, or objectify that situation where I'm like, oh, this is a good thing. This is a
totally.
And I'm like looking forward to it. I add all this meaning on it, and usually that creates this expectation that pulls me out of the present moment in the presence of that person. So like I've recently had an experience with somebody who I knew, and I was just like, I like decimated the expectation, which I think is dope because you don't create that sort of extra stuff, that extra layer that disconnects you from that person. But
yeah,
I love just being with whatever the fuck shows up is what showed up.
Yeah, it's interesting to talk about it in terms of relationships because I think you can see it so clearly. Like I have some, so I feel like for me, friendships with women have always been like pretty easy. Like for whatever reason, I just like don't have a lot of thought around it. I don't have a lot of expectations around it. I just like meet other girls and we like get along or we don't. And it's like not a big deal. It's not something that I really like think about. But I have friends who it's really hard for them, you know, and it's because they're like in this. And the only reason I know that they're doing this is because this is what I do with guys is like, they're in this like, okay, does it, you know, are they being a good friend to me? And like, what is, you know, I'm putting this expectation or are they having this expectation of me? Or like, they're trying to like kind of work it all out, you know, in their head to try to like think about it rather than just kind of being present to whatever the relationship is, which again, like for whatever reason, this is like not something that I learned. It's just like a natural thing that I'm good at with other girls. But with guys, I really do that. Like if I like a guy, it's pretty much impossible for me to be present with it. And I've noticed like there was one guy who I've had this kind of like ongoing sort of like weird on and off long distance type of relationship with. And when we first met, I was like really no expectations. And it was like amazing to me because I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm open to whatever's next. Like, you know, it was, like I like never experienced that before. But then I felt like he was like kind of pulling away. And then I was like, okay, maybe we should just never talk to each other again. Like immediately I came in with that defensiveness, not clinginess. And so I don't know, like that was like an interesting dynamic that I've sort of been reflecting on recently too, where it's like, you can be like present and whatever, but then maybe something doesn't go your way and then you put expectations or you cling or you want to control it or whatever.
I sprint ahead as I interrupt you. I sprint like, I'm like, oh, I'm already at the end. We're fucking, and I'm spending time there and shit. And they're like, hello. I'm like, right. But like this wedding is like, I got fireworks happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
The image that came up for me was like it felt like when you were describing the beginning of the relationship when you were just like no expectations, whatever. Like the image that popped in my head was like walking on air, but just having the thing appear underneath.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, oh, that was the right decision. Okay. And you're just stepping, but it's just like you're not creating those resistances. So it's everything is the right thing because you're present for it. You're like it's very simple, which is why I think that it's such a when it gets weird like that, when you're like, fuck, I've already sent this into some weird place in my head.
Totally. Or you're like, I need to see all the things out. Like if I can't see them laid out in front of me that I know where I'm going to step, then
Yeah.
I'm just going to go back, or I'm going to jump off, or like whatever the thing,
I'm gonna cause a problem here. Like I gotta that's a you can feel the constriction of that fear.
Yeah. And it's like we probably do that. I think relationships is a place that it's really easy to see that, but I think we do it in everything. I've been watching The Bachelor as I do. And I feel like I've been learning so much recently because I've been also like trying to date. So I'm like recognizing how I'm interacting with people. And one thing that is sort of related to all of this that I realized is, so in The Bachelor, in the first episode, you know, there's like the person, I'll just say The Bachelor instead of Bachelorette. The guy is like standing there, and then the girls come in the limo and they like come and he meets everyone one by one. And then like there's lots of gimmicks and things like that. And they always say, like, there's so many girls here, you have to do something to stand out. Like, you have to, you know, and it just like hit me all of a sudden when I was watching. I was like, no, you don't. Like, when you meet someone and you have a connection with them, you know instantly. Like, and if you don't, you also know that instantly. Like, obviously things can grow or you can develop feelings for someone, but like I've gone on 7 dates from Hinge, and 6 of them I knew, seeing them across the room, that it wasn't going to be the guy for me. You know what I mean? And then like one of them I was like, oh no, I'm kind of into this guy. And it was just, you just know that, like, and like I've seen people out or whatever. Like I have like a big crush on like the guy that works at the butcher shop. And but it's just like, you just have that connection instantly, or you don't. Like, it's not something that I need to like dress up in this like crazy outfit, or like come in this, you know, do something wacky, like to get their attention. It's like
everything about that show is totally like, I need to see the path laid out in front of me. Literally, everything about that show is like jumping to like the end of whatever the path is without taking any steps.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, this is what it looks like when you're doing the thing. And I'm just like, it's crazy to me that it like reflects kind of the hollowness of Western culture perfectly. Like how, like all of us, and I'm not like being like, man, like America's got to wake up. We're all responsible. We're all here. It's all of our problem. Mm-hmm. But it seems like it's this like hollow shell of a thing, not because it's not intending to be, but just I think it's so disconnected from the present moment of what's actually happening. And something that Sam and I do on like all shows, you know, but specifically reality TV shows that that we watch, is I think there's a temptation to kind of be overly cynical and just be like, oh, like this is bullshit. So I do like the shows where like from time to time there are these sort of moments of honesty that you just can't fake. That's not like some stage shit and you're just like, wait. And like I think we treat it like it's the fights, but that's just like that. I don't give a shit about that. That's just people being reactive and childish. But like,
yeah, which can be kind of interesting to see like how people, I don't know, like react to each other.
It's like seeing yourself in your own sort of strange reactive patterns and just watching it and being like, I did that yesterday.
Yeah, totally. You know what I mean? You're like, I am the villain on The Bachelor.
I'm the villain on The Bachelor. Like, facts.
Yeah. No, but it is, you're totally right. I mean, they're like racing to the end to like get engaged. They're in this kind of competitive situation, you know, they're making a competition, which like it's not a competition. Like that's not like the show is literally not a competition. Like it's set up as if it like I can see how people would think that it was. But like, right, that's like devoid of like the essence of love and relationships. Like we're not in competition with each other.
No, that makes no sense. Like,
but that's how it feels sometimes too. Like even in dating in real life, if you're like on Hinge, say, and you're dating someone and dating multiple people or whatever, like it could totally feel like a competition where you're like, oh, I need to like impress the person the most, or I need to be the most likable. But it's like, ultimately we don't control that. We can't manipulate that.
Yeah, you can't fake that shit.
Yeah, right?
You really can't. Like people, people try, and it's just like it never ends well. Yeah, no, that's something that I feel like is kind of maybe the essence of like something like maybe TikTok or just you learn that. I think that like from a paradigm perspective, we very much have kind of been fed this sort of weird lie that we're all in competition with each other about everything. Like the essence of the sort of
For sure.
like end gaining nature of our like culture is very much like one base. I mean, it's a competition is a natural consequence of materialism. It's not like rocket science. It's just when you think you're separate from
Yeah.
everything, you're always going to be in competition with something, and that is it's a lie, but it definitely fucks up relationships because that you're right. You really that's the fucking litmus test every time. Like this is stupid.
Yeah, and it kind of in something like a work situation, which I feel like capitalism is all based in competition as well. It like creates the feeling of scarcity because you're like, oh well, if we have to compete, it eliminates the generative quality that exists in the universe, where it's like we
Yeah.
can just generate new businesses, new ideas, new ways of like being in the world or making money or whatever. It's not like, oh, there's just like a set number of things that you can do and you just have to compete for
Yeah.
those things.
Yeah. 100%. It's like this is just what it is.
Yeah.
We're gonna sit fight. Like like what? Yeah, and that's what I feel like it has felt like for so long. Okay, so this book that I'm reading,
Okay.
I don't want to talk about it, but it's so fucking. I'm not gonna even say it, but like in the book, in this
The
society,
mystery book, Harry
the
Potter.
mystery book, Harry Potter. So in Harry Potter, this is spoilers. In the book, in the society, like it's set up. Man, fuck, can I say this? No, I don't want to say this. It's kind of set up where they've kind of advanced to a place where they only work for like 2 years. Like they have like you go to school until a certain point, and then when you're 17 and 19, you work like pretty much nonstop, no days off, pretty much.
Whoa, okay.
Um,
It's intense. And then you
but
just age 30 years
right,
in those
yeah,
two
you're like
years.
you're fucked. But it's super interesting because you get to like the whole cultivation before that is like what you're kind of interested in, like what's it going to be for you, and it's not necessarily your thing, but that little bit will like align with you in some way. You'll really kind of go into it, and the whole society is like it's like an enlightened society is the whole premise. And but after those 2 years, like you've made enough money to like never work again and live pretty much however you want, and they just have a good time and they do stuff they want to do like all the time. But also, if you do want to keep working, if like that's what you like really fucking want to do and research and like build things or be a painter or whatever, like you do that too, and you can keep going as long as you want to after that. Because and in the book, you like the guys like they recognize that some people aren't built to just go like that, but at the same time, other people aren't necessarily built to like fucking go crazy. Like like there's a sort of a leaning towards like the idea of genius or the idea of kind of almost a savanthood being like the thing for a lot of people because it's like you know oh that person just this is what they're obsessed with, like
Mm-hmm.
nobody put that in them, they just
Totally.
it's just like what it is for them.
Yeah.
And I it's such an interesting premise, but yeah, it's a cool book. uh, I just think we're all kind of missing that when we're in this sort of competitive weird space. It
Yeah, for sure.
I mean disconnects us from like us.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I always think if everyone was just allowed to do whatever they wanted to do, like we would have a functioning society. Like people want to do stuff and they also want to try stuff. Like I always think there's a million jobs I would want to try, but maybe not like commit to long term or something. Cause I like to learn things. And I like to like bounce around and like
Yeah.
I would love to take that a certain occupation for like a short amount of time just to see, or I don't know, like someone loves like building roads, someone loves like building houses, someone loves serving food. Like there's lots of, like but we fall into things that we think that either we have to fall into just because that's like the easiest job to get, or we don't have an education or whatever, or we fall into things because we think, that's what our parents want us to do, or that's what society, it's like how many people go into being like a doctor or a lawyer or like some kind of job like that that's like really successful, but that's not what they want to do. Like maybe they want to like do hair or something, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
but we kind of have this idea in our culture of like, well, this is better than this, or this is, more like respectable or whatever. And it's like, that's just conceptual. But then there are real, like monetary consequences, because some jobs do get paid like so much more. So if that's your priority, like, I don't know, that's just,
right.
There's so many things to think about that take us away from just like, what do I want to do right now?
I feel like that's kind of the biggest issue, and that's what kind of that book kind of solves, is like it's pretty much for the most part they give everybody everything they need.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so the whole people don't, and like it's like there are obviously like problems because it's just a society, it's the nature of things. But some stuff that I think is really interesting is that they not only do they give people everything they need, but because of that, like there's like no crime, right? Like why would you?
Yeah.
Everything's kind of about, and it develops because it's this enlightened society. Like people are very like, they treat everybody like they're friends, like on the street. And so they do this like whole thing as they're growing up, but like at a certain point, like they just are so familiar with everybody, and like there's no fear of like, because there's no idea of separation, of otherness at all. I think it's really fucking cool.
I wonder if it was more like that, like when there was less people.
I think so.
Because I also feel like the smaller the town, like the more everyone just like helps each other, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like people are really nice here, and I feel like people aren't really that nice now. Basically, just my own personal experience.
I went like villages and shit. Like I went like old like fucking huts and stuff, and you're like, LA sucks. I'm like, oh yeah, that's who. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think it's like part of it is like if you know people and you have rapport with them and they're like your friends and your neighbors, then some of that competition and stuff gets broken up a little. So I think when you don't know someone, then that's like when they become the other.
They're scary, yeah.
When you know them, they become like your own tribe.
Yeah, I think so. I think
we just have to meet everyone in the world.
Oh, that's mad simple. Got it. It's gonna go great. Oh man, I feel like I don't know why my mind just went to the anonymity of the internet. I was just,
totally.
Like I feel like when the internet has to be like people, even when there's no way of even doing that. We're already so far gone that we can't not. You're like you're the most anonymous and like not anonymous at all online, depending on like what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, even if we did have something that was like, you gotta be yourself online, you can't fucking do that. Like, nobody's gonna do that. Like, is that you? That's not you. We scrubbed your files. That doesn't look like you. Like, people just hack it. But I do think that, like, if people could meet each other, like, be in spaces together online, it would, like, cut down on a lot of, like, shenanigans a bit more.
Yeah, totally.
Like, if we can just, like, do this. Like
yeah I think also like seeing another person, like us talking like this is different even than like us talking on, if it was like just text. I feel like it's so easy to just say whatever over text, or people
like get real bold over text.
Right, I mean in both directions, right? Either positive and negative, where it's like I feel like I stay pretty in like a very mild, like neutral space when I'm in person with people. I'm not like, oh my God, like I love you, you're like the best person. I don't know. Like I feel like I don't like, I mean, I've been known to gush, I guess, but I don't like always gush or something, but I'm also like not an asshole. Am I allowed to? I've gushed. Let me just say that, but I'm not like always gushing.
Yeah.
But I'm also not being like, F you, you loser, or something. Not that I'm doing that on.
You're really good at that. I just like that was. I'm gonna get demonetized. What are you doing?
Sorry.
This YouTube guidelines are such a fucking rebel, Sarah.
Wait, what are the guidelines? Sorry.
They're not really.
Oh, okay. Oh no, I'm not good. I'm not the best with them. I'm a rule follower, but I'm not. I'm also bad at remembering the rules.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, that's pretty much my entire text personality. Bad at remembering. Somebody text me. Oh, okay. Well, got to get back to that at some point.
At some point. Totally. Yeah, what else should we talk about? I feel like, yeah, that's like pretty much what I've been thinking. Well, I guess like the thing about the being, realizing kind of, oh, you don't have to do anything to make someone like you or whatever, like in the context of The Bachelor, like kind of made me think about that for everything. Like that's just the case for everything too. Like,
yeah,
we don't have, like, I feel like it always feels like we have to control more than we do. I feel like I'm trying to like understand how the universe works right now as I'm talking, and I'm like, it's just not working. I just don't know how it works.
You can't understand it though. Like I think that's the bit that's super interesting. You can't. It's not something that you can really intellectually understand. But
yeah,
it is like. So I gotta come back to this fucking example every single time. But in the Spider-Man movie, when he has all the powers and they're like, and he still can't be Spider-Man, and at some point he's like, yo, you got to take a leap of faith. But like with literally everything, like everything in our life every moment in our life is a moment of like that, taking the step without it and like watching it appear underneath you. And yeah, stretching that out into conversations, relationships, how you care for your like life around you. Like it's the whole thing.
Yeah.
The faith that you're enough to handle it is the only thing.
Yeah, totally. Like, no, yeah, totally. Knowing, yeah, just knowing I don't have to be different than I am. I don't have to be more than I am. I don't have to be less than I am. I can just be as I am, and things will meet me. I guess that's part of it, right? It's like you just do it and then something meets you, or something comes and you meet it.
What's
right?
your yes? Like you made me think about. I feel like there's a weird relationship that gets created with ourselves when there is like a learning element. I feel like when that happens, like when we maybe pick up a new piece of information, we're trying to change something, quote, better something, whatever, that can almost lull you from time to time into the hypnosis of doing. Like, oh, I've got this new thing I got to do. And I think for me, a lot of the time, it will misplace my focus from being trusting in myself to like trusting in the new thing that I learned, the new tool that I have, inadvertently. And I almost always have to remember that it's just a tool. Like I find myself gravitating to it, giving it everything, and then giving my power away to it. And then I almost have to every single time be like, let it go. Oh, right.
Totally. I feel like what you just said is actually so not actually, because I feel like everything you say is very profound, but I feel like it's so profound. And I was thinking maybe part of it is that's sort of how we learn, is like we invest our entire attention, then we learn the thing, and then we can let it go. Like maybe in a way we sort of have to do that. But no, I think you're so right. I feel like I've been doing that too, where it's like, yeah, we learn something, yeah, and then it invites this attachment or this action, or yeah, it's like I feel like every single thing is like pulling us away from ourselves.
Yeah, but I feel like well, even as you said that, it felt like I was describing just it's the kind of process of creation and getting lost in this, right? Getting lost in ego,
Mm,
like that's an egoic construction, and it
right.
mirrors like our sort of journey of being lost here and being like, oh wait, I'm not like it's not just this, but it also is, but it isn't, right?
Hmm.
And it's that sort of awakening, and then from time to time, like I'll doze off.
Totally. And I wonder, I feel like we have to get lost in that
Yeah,
sometimes, right? Because we can't learn or grow if we're not getting lost in it in a way.
yeah,
Like we kind of need to yeah, like create concept and then like remove ourselves from concept and then like create other concept and then come out of it. Like maybe it's
yeah.
just like a constant, is that like what breathing
Breathing.
is?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like breathing. It's
We're like,
breathing. You have to breathe, like, and be okay
yeah.
with that. And I think that naturally happens. The the paradox here, it naturally happens when we're sort of present, right? When we're just taking the step and trusting that we're enough. It's when we need the whole path laid out in front of us
Mm-hmm.
that we are holding on to the conception or something else, right? Like that usually means we're kind of in a fear state of polarization.
Yeah.
Um,
And there always comes a point though, right? When we're in that forces us to let go.
yeah,
Like maybe it won't be, maybe it'll be in 40 years. Like it might not be right away. I think we also get better and better at it. Like, quick, not better, but like quicker and quicker. I like
yeah,
recognizing when we're doing that. Obviously, some people just do it their whole lives from beginning to end. And then they probably, when they die, they're like, oh. But I feel like, right? Like we I've lost what I was gonna say.
we get
What I
caught
was
up
saying.
in
Yeah.
the stuff, and we notice it, and we're like, oh, okay. But I love what you said
Yeah.
about it. Like you get better at noticing it because I feel like that's a really good way to describe raising your vibration,
Mm.
because like really those swings, and I've kind of done this example before, but like are just, if this is like our baseline, like our best shit, like yeah, early in life the swings are massive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then as your awareness expands, you become more aware of those big turns, and you're like, oh wait, so you don't wait until you're up here. Now you're kind of down here, and it's just going faster and faster because you're going like, oh no, that ain't it. Oh, relax, up, relax, up, and
Totally.
you're just, and that's like faster and faster and faster.
Yeah. And these different kind of things we start to recognize as like clues to wake up
Yeah,
too, in a way. Like I had this, okay, so the other day I was thinking, I feel like I've been like really very much in my head and going through all of these like crazy emotions, but it's like bit come with also so much learning. And I think it was yesterday, I was like, oh, I think I really need to be more like deliberate and more disciplined in like a personal practice of meditation or spiritual practice of some sort, and just like to be a lot more, which I've never really done. Like I've done like small periods of time, but I feel like overall I kind of interact with my life as like trying to just wake up all the time in everything, and not, I haven't necessarily like devoted, specific amounts of time like in the morning or whatever. And yeah, so all of a sudden I was like, oh, I need to do that. But then even that kind of woke me up to it, where I was like, oh, I'm creating this concept of, oh, if I could only meditate every morning, like do these things, like, and I was like, that's not what I need to do. I need to be present in every moment that I can throughout the day. Like, not that those things wouldn't help necessarily, but I could tell that I was coming up with that idea from like
from
a
this
really
space.
busy mind that was like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
It was like interesting how, because in the past I probably would have been like, okay, let me create a chart and I'm gonna check off every day that I do it or whatever. Like I would have continued down that path to take action toward it, but I kind of like woke up and was like, oh no, I can choose to be present in any moment. Like I don't need to create a path to get to presence. Like I literally, it's here for me right now.
Already here. Fuck yeah.
The kingdom of heaven is at hand. That's what my spiritual teacher always says.
Yeah, yeah, man. That's the whole fucking thing. I love that. You made me think of that book that I can't talk about again. And but in it they have, the society has like experiential awareness of
Mm,
this, um of how art is just another kind of version of an expression of creation. Like everything is this sort of create expression of creation, and they talk about how like there are folks who experience it different ways. Like there are people who go to school and they study philosophy and the religion of the time and all that shit, and that's their bit in. And then there are folks who are just kind of doing their life, and that's also the same. And then there are people who like make art and stuff, and they're like, and they all call it pieces of this thing, the God thing, but whatever the name they use. But and they all say they're all pieces of it, trying to find sort of expression through you. And so I love the awareness that like there's no right way to be. And like I think that's sort of like yeah, no. Sorry. I was like I did a whole thing. I went in a whole journey and I was like, nah, nah, fuck
The
that.
whole
Nah,
journey.
nah, yeah, I like the whole thought process was like, do no, no, yes, no, no. I thought it was interesting, but it's not. But like, yeah, I think we all are very completely far out. What are we talking about?
I know. I feel like that keeps happening to me too. We're like, well, and then we're just like
Oh, I caught it
into
from
nothing.
you.
Sorry.
Now I'm mad. No, but we turn into something to do constantly, and then realize, and then relaxing into the present moment. But there isn't a right way. And like, 'cause I know so many fucking like yogis that are just people. They just doing their fucking life. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like the rules of that game are the same. It's being present with your life is the only fucking guru that we need. It's just for people like me. The boy needs some structure. I need some, it's so interesting. One of my mentors, something that I personally experienced kind of early on in my journey is this awareness that like I feel like all roads kind of in some way lead to that sort of spiritual experience, however it comes. But I do think for most folks at some point there's like there not has to be, but there usually becomes an awareness of like this innate something that's has nothing to do with you. That's like bigger than you, but also not at all. Like, and I think that sort of intuition is shared, which is why I think artists, craftsmen, and women like everyone at a certain level speaks the same language. We're all saying the same shit, and that's kind of my litmus test for like for anything. I think a unified perspective is one that can come in all walks of life, but when you see it, it always looks the fucking same.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like I've sort of lately been using that as so this guy was posted something about like teaching mindfulness in schools, and he was saying like, or the thing, he wasn't saying it, but the thing he posted was like, they shouldn't teach mindfulness in schools because it's like Buddhist, and kids shouldn't, should be able to choose into that, and they might not be Buddhist or like want to practice. It was like this crazy thing, and like the kind of this back and forth of like, well, mindfulness has been shown to have all these like brain implications that are really good for you, and it was just kind of like this weird back and forth that he was posting. And it really like kind of made me think, because my aunt has been like a really big she's gotten mindfulness into like tons of schools all across the country. That's like her whole thing. So it was like a weirdly like personal also. But yeah, it kind of made me think, I was like, it's so interesting to have that perspective where you're just thinking of everything as so separate. Where it's like, and I feel like this has been like, I've sort of been trying to kind of come back to this as sort of a, because I feel like I can get kind of caught into that, because I'm like, well, I want to be sensitive to everyone's problems that they're having or whatever, like anything that like triggers anyone, like I want to be sensitive to it, and I never want to say anything that offends anyone. But then like that's really hard to do. Obviously impossible, really. And I always think like, so like after I was thinking about it for so long, I was like, you know what, like I think my North Star is that unity, and like is that recognition that all of it's the same thing, and we don't need to be always like separating everything.
Yeah.
But then some things like it's helpful to like separate that. Like I think about this with labels all the time. It's like,
yep.
Labels are helpful and then they're not helpful. Like it's just this constant like.
When you said that, it reminded me of something that I wrote on my run today, which now I'm posting anyway, I don't care. But it was like, the only thing that keeps me from like losing my mind by the arrogance of how people present certain things online, like they know something, is the awareness that I don't know shit. It's like an instantaneous, like, how dare you? Right. I don't know anything. Like, it's like, you dumb mother. Oh, wait.
Yeah. Oops.
Wait, did I just take a position? Right. And for me, I think like there is that sort of toxically positive take on compassion that comes up a lot of the time for me with that of like, oh, that means I have to be like agreeing with nice and sweet to everybody, like, oh, like that's spiritual because like everybody is one. It's like I'm gonna deal with people compassionately because I'm not gonna make them a monster, but that also doesn't mean I'm gonna let somebody hurt me or
right.
You know what I mean? Like, I think we misinterpret that a lot of the time, and that creates a propensity sometimes in me to be like, well, I just because I can see the paradox and see that like that's true for you, doesn't mean that it's like a constant justification for like, oh, I'm sure it'll figure itself out. It's like, no. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think so. And I think it kind of reminds me of this back almost like to this agency question of how much do we like hurt each other versus like how much do we like allow ourselves to be hurt? Meaning like if I do something that's like disappointing to someone, like did I really do that to them, or like are they just like independently disappointed because they had whatever expectations? You know what I mean? Like did I inflict that on them? No, like I would never say someone like inflicted. I mean, I don't know. It's like, yeah, someone could like say something mean to me and then I could maybe like choose not to be around them anymore. You know what I mean? But like the amount that I let it affect me or affect my self-image or make me upset is sort of like in my domain. You know what I'm saying? Is this related to what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I think, having the choice in that space, I think, to be like, okay, I get to choose how I respond to, all of this, right? Is, I think, a powerful representation of our own agency. But I think it's also, I mean, for me, I think it's really important, or at least I try to remember that, like, if that person thinks that I have fucked the situation, then it doesn't matter if they should or shouldn't, or if I'm not. It's just that's their reality. Like that situation is
right.
That's what's happened. What has happened is that is their belief, and that's all that matters to me. I'm like, okay,
right.
Well, that's what that is.
But then, how do you change? Like, is that? I guess, like, is that meaning? Okay, now I should change my behavior, or you just let them have whatever experience? I mean, I think this kind of like for me kind of brings up this individual versus societal thing, or like, how much is individual awakening sort of an individual like agency over our own thoughts and our own experience versus the societal of like how we're actually affecting each other.
I feel like, personal harm, I mean, maybe if that's what you want to do, I feel like I would just do whatever I need to do. Like whatever is necessary in that situation, right? Like I think
if you care about the person, you apologize and you make it right with them. if
Yeah,
you don't
whatever.
care
Yeah.
about them, you let them go on to live their life without you or
But
whatever.
also, like, even somebody who I don't necessarily care about. Like, it's more so just like what there's no litmus tests. I think
Yeah.
that like the nature, our sort of nature is to sort of create this like objectification because we've sort of taken a lot of these concepts in from an objectified standpoint, right?
Mm.
And so you have to set boundaries. You have to do this. These are the right ways to do your life
Right.
because you fucked it up for so long. And it's like, there's no right way. And like, we decimate our subjectivity and we're walking around telling all of our fucking friends, like, you know, you shouldn't let them treat you like this because this is the correct thing that you have to do. Why? Well, that's what my therapist's best friends
Yeah, totally.
fucking. And it's like, what does this situation require at this time? And anytime I do a fucking video on TikTok, I'll get like a million like, yeah, but what about this exception? And I'm like, exactly right. Your exception
exactly right. Yeah,
is
totally.
exactly right. And I think we don't give enough like care or to that idea or the awareness that like whatever you want to do in that situation. A show like an anime that I was watching shows this kid. It's called like, I don't remember, but it's a Taoist show, and in it, like the lead character, I feel like I've already talked about this on a podcast. I feel like the lead character is like a Taoist, and there's this one scene where he meets these like masters, and he goes in and he meets the masters, and the whole time he's been kind of like doing stuff. He like cheated in cards. He's like cheating and stuff. He's like doing underhanded tricks and stuff, and you're like, is this the hero of the show? And like he goes and meets these masters, and like one of them is supposed to tell him like how his grandpa died or some shit, and that's all he wants is to know how his grandpa died or something that happened in his past. And like you see him over the course of this meeting with these like grand masters, he's supposed to be really respectful and be everything from super like gushing to that's a callback. To like really
We love
like
that word.
you know bowing to them, to being angry, to being aggressive. He's like he's hitting all of these things, and by the end of it, like you don't really know where he's at, but the masters all have a look on their face because they know they're like he doesn't give a shit. Like he and like meanwhile all these other like mid-tier guys around him like how dare he speak to these masters like that? This is the wrong thing. And all the masters are looking at him like, oh, he's so free. Like he's not on himself.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, I think so often we get into these weird habits of like, you're not supposed to let nobody disrespect you. You're not supposed to let nobody treat you like that. Like we do that shit.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And it's like, I did what was necessary. I don't care about you. I did what I wanted to do.
It reminds me of actually a couple things. One is recent. One was in high school. There was this guy named Adam. I'll just call him out by name. But Adam, if you're listening. And he just like was kind of one of those guys who I think he was like maybe a kind of a jock and was like really friendly and like in all like the smart classes, but he was like kind of mean sometimes. And I remember someone at some point being like, why do you let him talk to you like that? Or like, how could you, they were like not happy with the way that I was like interacting with him. And I was like, because I don't care. Like, I don't take what he's saying personally. Like, so I'm not feeling disrespected because that's just like not my orientation. And it also reminds me of something recently with that guy that I mentioned earlier, who we've had like sort of this like on off thing. And it was really interesting because I was like talking about it a lot to friends and they were just like, I don't like how he's treating you. It was like exactly kind of what you're saying. I don't like how he's treating you. You deserve better than that. Like, just don't talk to him, like whatever the thing was. And it was so interesting because I was just like, but considering like my relationship with him, it doesn't feel right to just be like, yeah, like F that guy or whatever. And after like kind of a while of just reflecting on it, I was like, oh, like what I need to do is I need to show up in my own loving and like see what comes from there. And like sometimes that totally is like, we need some distance. Like I've totally done that with relationships where I'm like, the most loving thing I can do for both of us is to take a lot of space. And then other times that's not what it is. Other times it's like, okay, I need to have an honest conversation, or I need to, just check in with my own self and like, where have I not been honest with myself about the relationship, or where it's like, it could be a million different things. But I feel like we always have this assumption, exactly like you said, of, okay, well, yeah, you should respond in this particular way, or like setting boundaries, or what does it mean to kind of stand up for yourself? And it's like, that could mean a million things.
Yeah. I think I want to give, like, not play devil's advocate, but give the other side of the thing, the useful aspects of it. Like, it's fair shake here, because, like, I think it's a natural function of kind of the way that we've sort of structured society, or needed to a lot of the time, which is like law, order, action, consequence. This is the correct way to be, and that kind of trickles down into our livelihoods. And for a lot of our lives, we're sort of, saved by the shoulds, right? Don't go in the street. There are aspects of certain things.
That's a good point. Yeah.
That's fire. These are very useful aspects, and that's something that maybe, I think I've heard Sadhguru say, is like that it's mad useful for survival. Like that sort of like shoulding and all that, that shit is like,
yeah, if this, then that, that's easy.
Right. And I feel like relationships kind of can dip into that space a lot of the time, for people, obviously, right? There are situations that when those relationships get out of hand, it's about survival. And in that situation, like, leave. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, we're not playing like that. Like,
yeah, that's totally true.
Maybe he likes me. Like, we're not doing that shit. So I think that's an important distinction to bring up. And I don't want anybody, because I feel like I know that's a really like kind of a touchy thing, but also that's usually what people bring up is like, well, what about this? It's like, yes, all that when it's
totally.
There's but I think a lot of the time we take that sort of survival instinct in certain situations and expand it over like everybody's relationship at all times. The whole fucking thing becomes like, okay, so like, what do I do? What do I do? And it's like, what?
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point. In the case of, an abusive relationship, for example, obviously, like, I don't know that much about them, but I know that they can be really hard to leave, and people make all sorts of excuses and stay for all sorts of reasons that it's, they're in survival mode. They can't necessarily like access. Sometimes you do have to like listen to the person who you trust.
Yeah.
Who is like, look, you need to like get out, not just in an abusive relationship, but like in whatever situation. Sometimes you do need someone to just take your hand when you can't see and like pull you out of like whatever situation you're in. Like, so that's, for sure. I mean, it's so hard. Why can't there just be like a rule book?
A rule book? Like, where's the fucking rules?
I guess there is a rule book, the Bible. And are we following it? I don't know.
Wait, that's two things I want to say. First thing, the Bible thing is funny because you're not wrong. First thing is like the last thing I'm going to say about this fucking book that I can't talk about.
We've like literally only talked about the book this whole time.
I've been obsessed with reading it. I'm halfway through, and it's like,
I get it.
Amazing. But like something they know about relationships is like they don't force them either. Like they don't force. I think so much of what creates issues for us is that kind of forced idea of a should within the context of even being in a relationship, when it should happen, how it's supposed to happen, who are you supposed to be with. Like all of those shoulds add to the dysfunction of the situation at hand. And in this like one society, like they're very much aware and very comfortable. Also, because it's kind of an enlightened society, they're very open in speaking clearly in their relationship. So they don't stay in things longer than things have run their course. Like, hey, I'm attracted to somebody else. This is no longer going to work for me.
Yeah, there should just be like an eject button.
Right? Like but like, it's so interesting. It's like, you can just imagine, it's not like this weird thing. Like if you were in a space of presence, like when you really knew yourself and you were in that kind of vibration, if everybody was rocking like that, everybody would just say what it was, say what they meant what they say, and this is it, because they're not going to add all the meaning and bring in all their traumas and bring in all their bullshit. It's just like this, And then people are like, oh, okay, this sucks, this is painful, because they have a good relationship with their emotions. I know
Yeah.
this emotion is painful, but it's not me. And so
Yeah.
now we're just like, yeah, okay, I don't like this, but
Yeah.
I want you to be happy and shit. And they like depict this breakup like that, and I was just like, that's just consciousness. Like
Yeah.
that's be
I
no.
can I tell you this thing that I noticed? So like as I've been going through this like quote unquote breakup type of situation, um we I've been like going back and reading some of like our old conversations, or like one time randomly like I saw a couple screenshots from conversations from like 2018 or whatever. So it kind of like has taken me back, and it's been so crazy because I would look at them and I was like, this is the exact same conversation we're having right now. We're just having the same conversation
Mm,
over and over and over again for 4 years. Like, and it was really wild to see because it made me realize how much, like, especially this one thing, because I had said, okay, like recently I was like, I don't think we can be friends. Like, I think this is like done. Thinking this is the first time I've ever said that. No, it's not. I said that like 3 times before. And I like didn't remember, you know what I mean? But it's like because that's my like fear reaction. So if I start feeling like he might jump ship, I'm just gonna jump ship, or I'm gonna threaten to jump ship or whatever. And it's like I'm not doing that consciously, but it's like that's just my immediate reaction. And I've had that reaction over and over again because we keep ending up in these dynamics. And it was like so interesting to just see. It's like either the conversation that I was reading from like 2018, 2019 is exactly essentially like the conversation we're having, or it's the exact thoughts that I'm having. And I'm like, wow, we both are just having thoughts, and then we're just like creating this relationship from our thoughts. And it feels like our relationship is like growing or changing or whatever, but really we're just like in this little maze, and we're just like mice like running around in the maze doing the same thing
yeah.
like over and over again, because that's like what our thoughts are making us do, because we're not having any new thoughts, or like we're not having any new wisdom. Now I feel like I am, because I'm like having all these awarenesses. So hopefully I won't end up in that exact same situation, but it's like wild to just see. And I was like, how often are we just doing that in our lives, just creating the same exact situation over and over and over again, because we're just thinking the same thing over and over and over again. And like when we think that thing, the action that comes creates the world, or whatever. That was like wild.
Attaching to thinking in that way, I think is I think is that once again the sort of I need to see the bridge, I need to see the path laid out in
Yeah,
front of me,
for
right? Like,
sure.
oh, I gotta think my way out of it. I can figure this out. I can figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we're just there, it's like
Yeah. And especially when you're in dynamic with someone else and you find a pattern. And so it's like, I do this, or I'll say he started it. He did this. That made me have this reaction, which made me do this, which made him have this reaction, which made him, and we're just kept, we're like one of those ping pong,
yeah.
like whatever those like balls are.
Hmm.
Should we answer this Bible as rulebook question?
Yes. What's the question?
Oh, do we really think the Bible is the rule book?
Oh,
With
okay.
this emoji.
This emoji. Oh yeah, the Bible thing. Okay, so I don't know. I felt that was Australian for
Just
a
turn,
bit.
just turn Australian.
That was the best Australian accent I've ever done, and I'm so disappointed in myself. Like, I'm never gonna be able to recreate that.
I'm
So
gonna start with yeah. I think it sort of is a rule book,
yeah, I would agree. I think.
but I feel like we should expand on that.
So something that in this book again, um,
You're like, no more Bible. We're only reading this.
only reading this
This
book.
book is the new thing.
No, they would burn this book. Another aspect of it though is like they restructured their sort of laws from like universal law and universal morals based on that. And it's so interesting how like they have like policies and things, and like the guy who's there who's like not really from there is like, what's up with what if somebody breaks the rule? And they're like, oh, nothing. And
Right?
he's like,
Yeah.
what you mean nothing? And he's like, nothing. He's like, we value human life. Like yeah, they broke the rule, but like most people don't. Like most people don't want to do that because they're taken care of and they have what they need. But like they run the whole thing is sort of built from that sort of space of awareness in every aspect. So there's not very much of that. But I only say that to point out that like the Bible, when we look at it from like just from the creation standpoint, right? Like the creation pattern, the first 7 days of creation are the only pattern in existence. And they all are moving from a state of unknown, right? I don't know what's going to happen in front of me, but I have faith that it's going to work out and I'm going to take this step and then it's created, right? That is present moment awareness. That's the first 7 days of creation. Like, imagine the days of creation happening just in your mind. It's literally the motion of like, oh, I have there, my mind is kind of formless and void. In comes something I want to create. I blah blah blah. I go through the steps and eventually it manifests as, you know, creation, man, woman, whatever it is. That pattern is identical across the whole thing. And for me, the rules of that are very, very like simple, but the issue is, and that's the issue that this society kind of handles, is that um, it it's experiential in nature. Like it's not something that can be understood, which is why it's a meta narrative. So when we give it form and we say, oh, it means, and you know what I'm saying? When we give that idea form, a lot of the time it disconnects us from the experience of it. And so it becomes something to fight against, right? It takes a position so people are like, oh, don't do that. So the way the society kind of breaks this essentially is they have a tech that enlightens people essentially. It's like it's enlightenment tech, right? And it's like it's very useful, but it gives you a taste of enlightenment to a degree where you are like, oh yeah, this makes sense.
Yeah.
It's this awareness, but I think the challenge is being able to transmit those quote rules from the Bible to people without it becoming something that they can hold on to and dogmatize.
Yeah, I feel like it's less of like maybe less of like a rule book, meaning, okay, these are the rules and you have to follow them. More of like, these are the rules and that's how life is. Like you can't really get around it. It's more like a universal law book, you know. And I feel like a lot of the things are kind of what you're saying. I feel like I always think about Adam and Eve because I feel like it's the most like misunderstood and like misrepresented story, where people think, you know, people always talk about the tree of knowledge and leave off of good and evil. And it becomes this whole other story of sinning and doing the thing that's against the rules and like all of that. But it's like, that's not actually what the story is about. Like it's really about the idea that once we start imposing ideas of good and bad and judgment, like we are no longer in this space of
Eugenic state,
loving like everything, right? It's like, and that's a mental thing. That's not a do good, don't do bad. That's just like literally what happens in our brains, like in our minds. Once we start judging, we separate ourselves, we start creating conflict. Like that's where things happen. That's just a mental state. It's like, it's literally just describing a mental state, and it's like gotten so out of proportion and so misinterpreted.
I went to private Christian school. I've heard it all. They're all fucking like all something. It's so funny, like watching the like deconstruction Christianity movement, because I'm just like, it's so interesting, because I don't even think I didn't have a deconstructing Christianity moment because I was such a fucking people pleaser. I just was kind of like, I'm like just slowly backed out, like I'm good.
Just fall out of your chair.
Just like fall down, out of my chair. I was like, I'm good, like
fall out.
And then like kind of had my own sort of spiritual journey, and then like, because I feel like something instinctive in me like was like, there's something here, but it's not y'all. It's like what? Like, this is something lit, but like, so I wanted to be like, I don't really rock with whatever this is, but I'm gonna keep an eye on you. Like, I felt like I canceled the contract. You know, when like somebody gets
Yeah.
canceled, and they're like, hey, we're just gonna like Nike's like pauses the contract. Like, we're just feeling like our relationship isn't working right now, so we're gonna suspend the contract for a bit. We're open to returning. When like people care. Like, and that's how I felt. And then I had my experience, and I was like, oh shit, the Bible is fantastic.
Totally.
It's like, oh wait, this is lit. I love the fucking. You're exactly right. Like that. To your point, like the idea of the rule book, of it just being the space of seeing that awareness, seeing the symbolism under it. And I actually really felt like shit for a second while you were saying that, and then I realized,
Why?
well, no, because I was like, yeah, no, I was agreeing with you, but I was like, what the fuck was I even talking about? And then
I feel
what
like you were saying it just in a different way.
I was, but I was like, I was trying to. I don't think I like articulated the point I was trying to make. I think the biggest point I was trying to make is and I guess I maybe did, but the challenge I find with specifically the Bible is practice, right? Having a practice that I can be like, oh, this is something that I can give to someone from this, and there are things that I think that I have some things that are dope, but it's it can be challenging to just, if that's just kind of your only frame of reference, to sort of, it feels like, I don't know if you're the one who told me this thing, something like Christians like didn't do the homework or something, or they just skipped to the end or some shit. Like, there's this thing, so much of the focus of Christianity in particular is on the end goal. It's Christ centric. And so we as a society pay very little attention to the sort of elements that connect to the symbolism underneath, and we kind of make it about the one thing. And so all of the ritual is like The Bachelor. It's very sort of hollow because it's all about getting the thing at the end, and all of the steps in between are really based on the separation, when that's, emphatically untrue. So when you bringing that you to that is the nature of the practice. And I think that's really the thing that enlivens Christianity in a different way. But it's challenging.
Yeah. And it's also like the form, right? It's like the end and also the form that people are really focused on. But yeah, I guess, what do you see? Because when you were talking about the practice, it made me think of like the Old Testament and Judaism, which is like almost too far on the other end of practice. Like, right? It's like well, I don't know if I could say like all Jews do this. When you start with they, that's a bad sign.
Those people, like, what you mean?
It's like there are all of these practices that you do. You wake up and you say a specific prayer, and you say a specific prayer before you eat, and you do the washing of the hands, and you do this, and you do the thing every Friday, and then you do the thing on Saturday night, and then you do, like, there's all of these kind of practices, which I think are for the purpose of, and then of course reading, the Torah and reading the Talmud and discussing it and all of that. But it's like, it's all for the purpose of, okay, just do the thing, and then you'll like get the benefit of the thing. Even, it's kind of like a lot of people, have the idea of like, you don't like, do it first, understand it from doing it, rather than being like, well, why do you do that thing? It's not, oh, why do we celebrate Passover? And then once we understand it, then we'll celebrate it. It's like you celebrate it, you can ask why while you're celebrating it or whatever.
That's really interesting.
Instead of saying, don't ask why are we saying this prayer, you just say the prayer, and then you can ask, but you just say the prayer anyway. So it almost goes in like maybe the other direction, where it's like very, and I feel like it can be, but that's also very form oriented. Like that can get into making it about the thing. It's about saying the prayer rather than like, what is that? What's the essence of that? I feel like there's always and then I feel like maybe the New Testament, I'm sort of just riffing here, I have no idea. The New Testament kind of brings in this element of Christ and grace and forgiveness, and maybe not having to do all of those practices, that it can just be the kingdom of heaven as at hand. You don't have to do all of the things. It's just there all the time. You don't have to you don't have to jump through any hoops.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you think
no,
so? I've not really read either book.
No. Like, I love all of that. I think it's first thing that came to mind is when you were even talking about Judaism. I think today I wrote this thing about how I always see in every sort of tradition, I see it hierarchical. I know it's not really that, but it's sometimes to a degree it kind of is. And in my head, like, and right? You know the exceptions. There are folks in Judaism who are like, they know exactly what the fuck that shit is for. They know exactly what the fuck, you know what I mean? Like, those people exist. It's just there's more people like at the bottom of the triangle in all of these situations down here who are kind of disconnected from everything a lot of the time. That's just a bigger pool of people. So that's kind of what we see. We don't really spend a lot of time with people who understand like Christian mysticism or
Right.
Judaism or Kabbalah to that degree, right? Getting up into the top there. And so I think for me, it makes me really like not judgmental because I'm like, of course, that's where a lot of people's heads are at. But B, I think that it made me acutely kind of aware in the sense of, I guess, maybe the idea of Christianity, like you said, like it's nothing to really do. And I think in my head, they all kind of are aligning. Like, if you look at the big Western religions, the big three, Christianity, Judaism, Islam.
Yeah.
When you look at them, I kind of almost see them as like the more Eastern traditions, just different rungs of different ways in. Like, it's not Tantra, it's Tantric Buddhism, or it's Zen, or it's this, and they're all like trying to do the same thing, and they all kind of work with each other. It's just that at the sort of exoteric level, they don't mesh. And neither do any of those other traditions on the exoteric level. If you're just kind of doing it to get it, then yeah, you're going to take an L every time. But at their core, they're all really kind of pointing to the same direction. They're just different. They're kind of four different modes of thinking and different things you care about. Because I can totally see myself getting down with like the ritual of Judaism. I think that's so fucking cool to me. Like being like, oh yeah, like it just, yeah, I think it's really useful. And I think that you're not wrong. Like, I think that's exactly what Christianity is kind of missing to a certain degree. Because even if you are just doing the thing to get the thing, or you do it long enough, like the shit's lit. Like, it's not a mistake. It's like God technology. They're not fucking around. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm sure a lot of people, there's massive benefit to even just playing at the exoteric level to any of these faiths.
Yeah.
It's just that when it becomes, the idea of separation becomes the biggest thing that we create so much drama.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's interesting, talking about like all of the different ones. I was just listening to an old video of one of my spiritual teachers who was talking about like the benefit of kind of picking a path and sticking with it, because he was kind of saying like that path will, like exactly what you said, basically like bring you in. But if you keep bouncing around, then you're not going in. You're just like staying out and you're thinking, oh, is it this? Is it this? Is it this?
Yeah.
Kind of keeping it external rather than kind of like letting it show you what it's trying to show you.
Amen. I do that. Like that's my rallying cry. It's from this fucking this book, Cutting Through Spiritual Material.
Oh, nice.
Talk about it all the time. Yeah. And they're like, in it, he's like, yo, y'all got we got an entire like closet full of just shit that we never fully kind of dedicated ourselves to. And I think that's where I'm like, that's the power of sort of sticking to one tradition and having that structure, because you do start with the just kind of going through the ritual and stuff. But as you continue to like dedicate yourself and take care, all of it does reveal itself over time. And there's usually a teacher there that when you start identifying with the tools, they're like, no.
They slap your hand bad with a ruler.
Like just smack you. Like, nah, we're not doing that. Like I think that's when I think about my guru, I'm like, yeah, no, like the whole thing is set up through the presence of them and the interaction with them to just like the whole thing is set up to be constantly like there's the ritual that you're doing and it's like over here.
It kind of comes back to like the first things that we were talking about where it's like we conceptualize, we go in and we attach and then we have to go out. But I guess like kind of what you're saying is at first you need someone to show you to detach or to hit your hand and say, you know, because we don't always have that awareness to be able to like wake up from it on our own. And then sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, sometimes things just take longer, whatever. But having someone to kind of like be there to guide you or to remind you or whatever is important, especially at the beginning.
Especially at the beginning. I'm like, I would have avoided so much bullshit. Like just, cause you know, coming to it from bouncing around, like my nature is one that like wants to conglomerate. Like I just give it all to me. I want more is more, in sort of taking care and kind of going one way has been just it's changed my entire life of not doing that. And I don't even know if it necessarily even needs to be like one specific thing, although I think that can be best. I think that the real care that needs to be taken is just taking things until as far as they can go. I think we don't do that in general. Like we'll just kind of dip our toe in instead of just going full tilt. Because if you lean all the way into something that's not right for you, you'll know instantaneously. But because we're fucking around, we just jump around and like can collect these little bits and pieces and continually kind of do the same problems over and over and over again. And if you don't like you said, have somebody like to be like, hey, no. I think that can make things a lot more challenging, but I don't think we complete things in a way that's meaningful, which I think adds to the confusion as well.
Yeah, I think that probably makes sense. I keep trying to just think about it in my own journey because I feel like I really haven't like totally committed to stuff, but I've definitely like found myself going down paths that eventually sort of like weren't right for me and then having to kind of reorient myself, you know, and maybe that's part of why I don't do that. But in a way, like I feel like I've always had a lot of curiosity around it. And so I feel like I've just followed my curiosity and it's led me where I needed to go to. Yeah. And I've found, you know, obviously like guides and teachers and friends and people who are constantly serving as like a mirror for me to wake up. Luckily, I mean, I don't know like how I sort of manifested that, but
no, I mean, like, thank God for the people in our lives because like that shit it's crazy. Do you ever like look back on like somebody that was like remarkable to you like a long time ago, but like you didn't know why, and then like later on in your journey, you're like, oh, that's why I really fucked with that person. I'm so glad they're in my life.
I don't know. I feel like the thing that I've probably experienced the most is that me and my best friend, like we have grown, like we haven't lived near each other for 10 years. We went to college together, but I feel like we've just grown at the same time in like the same ways through some freaking miracle. And so we're always able to be there for each other. And it's always like I'm having this like whatever thought. And she's like, well, you know, or whatever. And then she's like, I'm having this thought. And I'm like, okay, you know, and like we can kind of pull each other out or kind of break open that little shell that we're creating around ourselves.
That's the bit with my friend Jake. Like Jake was for me, like same shit. And I'm like, bro, like it literally
like how does that happen?
call, like I'll be like, so this weird like esoteric thing, or like, you know what always happens actually with our relationship is like, because I'm so kind of non-conceptual, it'll just be kind of like a feeling in my head. Like I'll kind of think about it, but it won't be. I'll be like, that's kind of there, and he'll just come in and give it form, and I'm like, yes, that exactly what the fuck you just said. And I'm always like, oh yeah, that's exactly what this is.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so this is how I felt my way through that. And he's like, well, this is how I dealt with it that way. And then we're just kind of, but that is interesting. I think it's also, it makes me think about Kabbalah because like I know, I don't know in all traditions, but in some, I feel like you have to study with a partner. You have to have somebody else with you, at least one more person, I think.
Yeah. Isn't there a thing where, and I don't know if this is the same thing or a different thing, but they say something like when two or more are gathered, something happens. But
Yeah,
what is
yeah.
it? What happens?
Hands are joined, something. I forget it now, and my mom's gonna kill me. Uh, but like, yeah, I think so. I think that there has to be that sort of push pull in a lot of ways. For
Or else
that.
we just get too spirally. It's like, yeah, that there's not, yeah, it's almost like we collapse, or at least that's my experience. I just like collapse in on myself if I'm
Same.
like alone for too long and just like in my own thoughts and they're just spiraling. And then I'm just like, like I have to kind of get out to have, different perspectives or different,
Oh
whatever to
man,
pull me out of my own head.
this is the nature, I think, of the therapy model. I
Hmm.
think that's why probably so many people are thinking like, oh, I should go to therapy. Like having that space to, like you said, get out of your head, maybe articulate that so you can see it. I think so often
Mhm.
like much of our bullshit just lies in the ambiguity of something and our lack of awareness of it and having someone
Yeah.
like, hey, this, why is it important? Because I just need to see it. Because if I don't say it, I won't see it. I'll just kind of maybe attach to the feeling that I'm having right now, and that's what a lot
Yeah.
of folks do. And I think that is that model for a lot of us.
Yeah, to just have someone even to just like reflect back to you even what you're saying. That was like me reading those old conversations. Like reflecting back to me, okay, this is just my thoughts over and over again, nothing new
Yeah,
or
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, yeah. Fuck. Yep. Same.
Such a blow to the ego.
Uh, big facts. Oh
Yeah.
man. All right. I feel like we should head out because I don't want to keep on lying. But
Everyone, we're doing an all-nighter.
we're doing an all nighter, big time. Like, man, no, she's East Coast. I can't do you like that. Thank you.
Oh yeah, I forgot it was earlier for you. For me, it's already an all-nighter.
You already-
Like 10:30, it's past my bedtime. 2
Dude,
hours.
I'm approaching that. It's been a week.
Thank you everyone for asking questions and coming and hang out. Sorry, you go.
No, you have it, please. I'm way too much, you know.
But they know you.
They know you, Sarah. You just did it for an hour and a half. Uh,
This is when I start to get shy again.
I don't know. Don't see me, Sarah. Take us out.
Okay, thank you everyone so much for tuning in. We love you. We love talking, and it's honestly like a lot more fun to talk when other people are just listening to you. I don't know why that is, but it feels like it's more like an engaged, like full conversation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, we appreciate you and you make this happen and worth it.
That was fantastic. Thank you. What she said. Thank y'all for rocking with me. Have a great night. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Motivational Speaker. I love you.